Hello, good morning children. Today we are going to start with lesson number 8. The name of the lesson is Silk Road and the lesson is written by Nick Middleton. So let us see the title first, and from the title we will come to understand what the lesson really talks about. So my dear children, as the title refers, so you can understand that this lesson actually talks about the particular route, okay, and this is a special route, and this route is the ancient route that connects Africa with different part of Asia like East Asia, Southeast Asia and South Asia with that of Afghanistan and Arabian Peninsula and also Africa. Some part of the Southern Europe also is connected by this route. Okay. So it was a route and finally it was developed into road. So I suppose you know the difference between the route and the route. So finally it became the highway, and this is the ancient road, and through this road in the ancient time, what was exported? Silk was exported. Silk was exported through this road, and therefore this road is suitably named as Silk Road. My dear children, so we are talking about this route now. So this route was taken by the writer Nick Middleton. So we will come to know about what Nick Middleton is. So you will see the photograph of the writer also. So Nick Middleton, so he wanted to experience. He wanted to have the first-hand experience of the kora. So my dear children, what is the kora? Kora is a particular religious journey. It is a religious journey or a pilgrimage. Pilgrimage to which a particular place? To that particular place is called Kailash. Now, where is Kailash? Kailash is in Tibet. T-I-B-E-T. Tibet. Tibet is in China. So ancient China. That means, my dear children, today we are going to have the Tibetan tourism in our chapter, and through this Tibetan tourism, so we are making the journey from a particular place called Ravu. From Ravu we are going where? We are going to Hor, and from Hor where we are going? We are going to Darchen, D-A-R-C-H-E-N, Darchen. And Darshan is the particular place that may be regarding as the get to the Kailash. Means from there you will be making the journey will go steep, and finally you will be reaching the top, and in that particular top or the peak of the hill there is the Mount Kailash, and this is a very respected place for the Hindus and the Buddhists. Therefore, this is the particular place, and this particular journey which is undertaken with a lot of hardships and travel was to know the unknown and also to have the kora, to perform the kora. Alright? Therefore, my dear children, let us continue. So we'll be going to the writer. Will know something about the writer, because if we do not know about the writer, then our understanding of the lesson will be incomplete. Therefore, it is better to know about the writer, his motive, and then it will be quite easier for us to understand the lesson. Here we go. Let's continue. So my dear children, this author, name of the author was Nick Middleton, and Nick Middleton was born in the year 1916. He was born in London in the United Kingdom or UK. So he wrote a lot of books, and the famous books are Going to the Extremes, Global Casino, Rivers, a very short introduction. Then he got lot of awards, and the awards were the Royal Geographical Society's nest. So Nick Middleton was a physical geographer. He was a physical geographer. And he was born in the year 1960. He was a British physical geographer and a supernumerary fellow of the St. Anne's College, Oxford. He specializes in desertification. Nick Middleton was born in London, in England. As a geographer, he has traveled to more than 50 countries. Going to Extreme is a television program for Channel 4 about extreme lifestyle in which Middleton experiences life in the hostile conditions other culture must endure. So my dear children, from Going to the Extreme, this actually shows, this particular book actually shows he was a physical geographer. He wanted to have a lot of adventure. He wanted to have a lot of adventure. He wanted to have those uncommon, unfamiliar experiences. And therefore, the particular places are where people normally do not journey or do not go, do not tour. He went there to have the unusual or exotic kind of experience. Exotic means unusual, that hardly happened earlier. Exotic type. So here also we'll get to know about the exotic type of experience, to know the unknown, to see the unseen, and have the unusual experience. He undertook the kora and he experienced the unknown things. So let us go to the summary of the lesson now. So it is time for going to the summary. So my dear children, so we are starting from the Tibetan place. The name of the place is Ravu, and his journey started from Ravu. He took a rest in the Ravu, and after taking rest, he got some gift, some valuable gift from Lamo, and after that he started for the journey. So into the company of his driver and into the company of his guide. So let us see his journey, start of the journey. Narrator was leaving Ravu and heading towards the Mount Kailash to complete the kora. So this is the start of the journey, and the journey is taken. So this particular lesson is called a traveler. Means the particular book or the lesson that talks about the travel or journey is called travel. So there is a traveler, and in this traveler we come to understand about the particular place Ravu, from where the journey was undertaken, and now they are leaving journey. They are leaving Ravu and they are undertaking the journey towards their destination is Mount Kailash. And the purpose or the objective of the journey was to perform the kora. Kora is a religious journey or a pilgrimage to the religious place for the peace of the mind. It was in the early hour of the morning that they were set to leave. So the journey was taken in the early in the morning. Lamo gave to the nature long sleeve sheepskin coat which all the men wore as a farewell present. Now see, we are talking about the Tibetan area, and this area is a totally very cold area, extremely cold, and therefore normally people use this sheepskin coat particularly during the winter time. And this was the kind of the quote that was gifted by Lamo to the narrator. Narrator here is who? The writer himself, Nick Middleton. We are talking about Nick Middleton. Nick Middleton is the writer. He is the first person narrative, and he was gifted with a sheepskin coat by Lamo. Lamo is a Tibetan girl, and gifted him suitably with the sheepskin coat that will be very much needed for the journey. Now see, so there is a Tsetan, T-S-E-T-N, Tsetan, assessed him as they got into his car, that they took a shortcut to the gate of Sangtan. Gate of Sangtan. Now, Tsetan had the experience of the route, and he knew very well the shortcut, and he took the shortcut, and because of that, they did not touch Sangtan, and they bypassed Sangtan, and then they started for the journey towards Kailash. Tsetan knew a road that would take them to southwest, almost directly towards Mount Kailash. As Tsetan was a very much experienced, therefore he knew the southwest road, and that is the direct road. That is the direct road to the Mount Kailash, and that will be shortcut also. It involved crossing several very high mountain passes. He said. So Tsetan said that when we are taking to the shortcut, then we'll have to cross so many mountain passes. Passes means what? P-A-S-S. Pass means what? Pass means the narrow road in between the mountain. Therefore, that information was given, and the writer or the narrator had a full faith in Tsetan, and therefore they started further the journey. Going that way would not be problem if there was no snow, but that one could never know till one reaches there. Now, Tsetan also told the writer that so there will be no problem at all when you take the shortcut. Only problem will be if there is a snowfall, and regarding the snowfall, no one can give the assurance or the guarantee that there will be no snowfall. Therefore, the only unforeseen obstacle that will come is the snowfall. ये जो स्नोफॉल था उसी का डर था, और नॉर्मली क्या होता है, जिसका डर होता है वही असल में वास्तव में होता है. तो हम देखते हैं आगे क्या होता है. From the gentle rising and falling hills of Ravu, the shortcut took them close to the vast open plains, dry grazing land with nothing in them except a few small antelopes. Now, my dear children, when we are talking about the Silk Road, when you are passing the Silk Road, then you will be meeting with a lot many deserts also. There is one famous desert called Gobi Desert. Gobi Desert is also there in the Silk Road one can encounter. That means when they took the shortcut, after taking the shortcut, earlier the scenery was very beautiful or very mesmerizing, very attractive scenery was there. When they took the shortcut, then the scenery was gradually becoming very dry. Okay, it was a dry land. It was a rocky area, and they could only encounter sometimes the antelopes. Only sometimes they could meet the gazelles or the antelopes. Moving ahead, they noticed that the plains become more stony than grassy. So when they are going up and when they are going ahead, they could notice that the plains are becoming more stony than grassy. Earlier it was grassy, now it was becoming stony, means are full of stone while they are going up and up. Here they saw a herd of wild hares that were racing around, and of which Tsetan had told them even before they appeared. So when they started for the journey, at that time, so it was Tsetan who told that on the way they will be meeting with the Kayang. K-Y-A-N. Kayang. Kayang is the wild S. Wild S. So while they were making journey, then Tsetan told us we are approaching them as long as they appeared. Kayang, he said, pointing towards a far-off pole of dust. When it drew near, I could see that the herd of galloping in massy, wheeling and turning into tight formation as if they were practicing maneuvers on some predetermined course. plumes of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air. Therefore, the journey continued. So sometimes they met the gazelles, sometimes they met the wild ass, and the scenario was now becoming little arid or dry, and they were continuous. They were progressing in their journey. Let us continue. So now, my dear children, when we will see when they reached Darchen. So after Darshan, the real journey started to the Mount Kailash, and this particular journey from Darshan to Darshan was very steep, very steep. Means they had to go after the hill, and this journey was a very steep journey, uphill task. Okay, uphill journey. Let us continue. The drive again becomes steep. They crossed the Drogba, standing to their flock. Thickly clad men and women stared at their car and at times waved at them while the sheep would turn away from the vehicle. So from here, my dear children, we can understand about the behavior of those tribal people living in the far off the place. So hardly they saw the cars or the buses, and when the narrator was passing through it, from off and on the buses or the cars could be seen, and when they were passing, they were waved at, or they begin to wave at the vehicle or the passing pilgrims when they are passing through it. They passed the nomad dark tent, pitched in isolated places, usually with a huge black dog activating big, smooth, haired dog guarding them. Now, when they continued their journey, then they could see the nomads' dark tent. So the nomads means what? The gypsies. J-Y-P-S-Y. Gypsy. Gypsy is a nomadic kind of people. Means sometimes they will be starting their or pitching their the tent somewhere here, and after that, when the caches of the food will be there, then they will be going to or moving to another place. So they were the nomads, and what the nomads actually made. The nomads made the tent, and the tent was pitched or made in the isolated places. In front of the tents, what were there? There were the huge black Tibetan dogs. Okay, they were hairy dogs, and they were very much so swift. They were the sports dog, and therefore they were very much so swift. Let us see. These dogs would observe them from a distance, and as they drew closer, they would rush toward them and chase them for about 100 meters. From at a distance, they saw the arrival of the strangers, maybe on the vehicle or on horseback or other. And when the speeding vehicle came near, they also gave it chase. Means that they were also following. The dogs were also following, and they will be continuing up to 100 meter. They will give the chase, and then they will be coming back. These hairy dogs were pitch black and usually wore bright red color and barked angrily with enormous jaws. So these dogs, now we come to know about the story of the dogs. So how did they look like? They were hairy dogs. Means that there were a lot of hairs, or there are a lot of furs. There are a lot of furs. Why is the furs over there? The furs is a mode of adaptation. Because if they are not furry, then they will be suffering from what? Cold. Therefore, it was a very furry dog, and they were massive. Okay, they were very massive. M-A-S-S-I. Massive means that they were very huge. Okay, they were very huge type of the dog, and this dog usually were very much smart dog. And when they saw the stranger, they will be barking continuously with enormous jaws. Their jaws were also very huge. Huge the kind of the jaw. With their jaws, they continue to bark at the stranger. They were absolutely fearless of the vehicle and would run straight onto their way. Now, when the vehicle went on the way, the dogs were there in front of the tents. They were guarding the tents. When the vehicle came, they did not have any kind of fear. What they did, they ran traced onto the vehicle in order to attack it. Therefore, what do they need to do? Tsetan had to brake and turn sharply to avoid them. To avoid the dogs. So what they did, they took a turn. After putting pressure on the brake, they took a turn and they went to another direction so that they can be avoided. The dog can be avoided. It was because of their ferocity that these Tibetan mastiffs were brought from Tibet to China's imperial court as hunting dogs. So there is a story related to this mastiffs or the Tibetan mastiffs also. These Tibetan mastiffs, because of their ferocity, they are very fierce. Okay, ferocity is coming from the word F-I-E-R-C, fierce. Meaning fearful. They are very much fearful. They are fearful with their look and with their gesture and attitude and with the kind of the barking. So they were very ferocious, and because of this ferocity, the Tibetan mastiffs were brought from Tibet, and it was gifted to the king or the emperor of China as a gift from Tibet. Now let us continue. Let us go to the next paragraph. As they entered a valley, they could see snow-capped mountains and the wide river, but mostly blocked with ice that was sparkling in the sunshine. As they move ahead on the upward track, the turns become sharper and the right bumpier. The rock around were covered with patches of bright orange lichen. Under the rock seemed unending shade. The narrator felt the pressure building up in his ears, so he held his nose, snorted and cleared them. Just then Tsetan stopped, and the three of them, Tsetan, Daniel and the narrator, walked out of the car. So my dear children, when the journey started, so this was the upward journey to Mount Kailash. When they were making the journey, as the atmospheric pressure, the height was increasing, and because of that, what exactly happened? Atmospheric pressure also was building up, and because of that, they felt the problem of the breathing, and because of that, what happened? There was some blockage of the nose also, and the narrator was trying to clear the ear and the nose just by snorting, okay. And at that moment, there was another kind of blockage. What blockage? That is the physical blockage of the road, and that is caused by what? That is caused by the huge pieces of the snow that came on the way. Next paragraph. It continued to snow. That the snow that had collected was too steep for their vehicle to scale. So there was no way to go around the snow pass. The narrator looked at his rituals and realized that they were at 5210 meter above the sea level. So just you can imagine now, they are at a distance, at a height of 5210 meter above the sea level. So after going there, what happened? Now they have the initial problem. So the initial problem was that there was the blockage. There was a blockage of the road due to the snowfall, and the snow was, okay, the snow fell so continuously, and the layer was so huge that it was a very steep, and the vehicle could not cross it or scale it. There was no way. Now only way is we left out is that to remove the snow from the track or the route to go forward. Let's see now. The snow did not look too deep, but the danger was that if the car slipped, it could turn over. So they could notice that the snow was not so deep, or the depth of the snow was not so much. The only danger was that the car may slip and it may turn over. It may turn over, meeting with the accident. Tsetan grabbed handcuffs. Tsetan grabbed handfuls of the soil and threw it across the frozen surface of the ice. So now, as it was very smooth, as it was very slippery, therefore in order to bring the inertia, what he did, Tsetan grabbed or Tsetan seized, S-E-I-Z-E-D, seized, pakarna. What? Handful of soil was seized and then threw it across the frozen surface, means into the track, so that the track become little rough, so that it can cross over. The vehicle can cross over the snow. Daniel and the narrator stepped out of the vehicle to lessen Tsetan's load. He backed and dropped towards the dirty snow, and with no difficulty the car could move on. So the writer and the guide, both of them came out of the vehicle, so that the vehicle become light and simply it can jump over or cross over the block road, the blockage of which was made by the snow. But after 10 minutes of driving, there was another obstruction. Tsetan seized the scene, and this time he decided to drive around the snow. It was a steep slope scattered with a big rock, but Tsetan got past them. The narrator checked his watch again. They were 5400 meters above the sea level, and his head began to ache terribly. He gulped a little water for relief. Now see, when they are going off, they are meeting with one obstacle after another. There were one barrier after another. After passing over the initial problem, they met with another difficulty. The difficulty was that there was another blockage, and this time what the driver Tsetan did. So as he was very much expert, he was a very much smart driver. What he decided to drive round the snow. He drive round the snow with taking lot of risk, and then finally he become successful. But what happened? The narrator have another problem. As they were going up, as the height was becoming more, then the problem with the breathing also was more. So he again suffered from what? Suffered from the blockage of the nostril, and therefore there was a headache. And in order to have some relief, he gulped a little water for relief. Then let us continue. When they reached the top of the pass at 512 meters, they noticed large rock decorated with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flag. All of them took a clockwise around them, as is the tradition, and Tsetan checked the tire on his vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand. Now see, we are gaining lot of interesting experience. So when they are going up, then the fuel, that is maybe the petrol that was there in the engine was expanding. Okay, the molecule of the petrol was expanding. That was another problem, and they reached 5515 meter above the sea level, and They saw that a particular rock was decorated with the white silk scarves and wrecked prayer flag. Means there are prayer flag, and also the rock was decorated with some other decorative cloths. All of them took a clockwise round around them, as is the tradition. So they took a round around this prayer flag, as it was the tradition, and Tsetan checked the tire on his vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank. He could notice that the petrol was expanding due to the atmospheric pressure. Now let us see the next paragraph. The narrator was soon relieved of the headache as it went to the other side of the pass. At 2 o'clock they stopped for lunch and ate hot noodles inside the long canvas work tent put up beside a dry salt lake. Now the narrator got some relief of the initial headache, and they went to the other side of the pass. So pass, as I told you earlier, is a narrow road in between the mountain, and they went to the other side of the pass. And after going there, what they did, they ate some hot noodles from a particular store which was put up beside a dry salt lake. There is a dry salt lake, and just by the side of it, a particular store was made, and the store or the particular stall was supplying or offering to the hot noodles, and they had the breakfast with that. The plateau was covered with the spots of the salty desert area and salt lake, leftover of the Tethys Ocean, which surrounded Tibet before the steep climb. Plateau is a particular place, particular flat surface on the top of the hill. On the top of the hill, where there is the flat surface, that is called the plateau, and the plateau was covered with the spot of the salty desert and the salt lake, which surrounded Tibet before the steep climb. So they are going to have the steep climb, and before that they encounter or they met with the plateau, which was covered with the salty desert area and salt lake. Here there was a lot of activity. Men with the pickaxes and the shovels. So shovels were moving around, wearing long sheepskin boots and salt-covered boots. All of them were wearing sunglasses against the bright light of the truck as they came laden with piles of salt. So here we can notice there are a lot of activities. The men were busy with the pickaxes and shovels. So they were doing what? They were collecting the salt, and all of them were wearing the sunglasses as the car was passing with the bright light. By late afternoon, they reached the small town of Hor, back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Daniel took a ride in a truck and went to Lhasa. Tibetan and the narrator bade him farewell. Now see, so finally in the afternoon time they found that the small town. The name of the town was Hor. The condition was very miserable there. It was a very dirty or unpleasant in its look, and they went to the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route, the silk route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Lhasa is the particular place. This is the capital. This is the capital of Tibet, and from capital Tibet to the Kashmir, this road actually followed. Daniel took a ride in a truck, and he wanted to go to Lhasa he wanted to go to Lhasa, and here we find that there is a separation from Daniel by the narrator. Now let us continue. Hor was a gloomy place covered with dust and rocks and devoid of vegetation. It was scattered with a lot of refuse that had gathered over the years. So the writer gives a brief description of Hor. So Hor was what sort of place? It was a very unpleasant place because there was no vegetation at all, and more particularly it was covered with what? Covered with dust and rocks. So there are dust and rocks, and this actually gathered up because of the many years of activities of the people. Therefore, Hor was very miserable. Hor was very miserable because it seems that the people were not concerned about the cleanliness. It was a regrettable as this town was on the shore of Lake Mansarovar, Tibet's most honored lake. So it is a very remorseful, it is a very regrettable to that this place would be so dirty, because this is by the side of the very respected or very honorable, very respected lake, that is a Mansarovar, which is honored as the most ancient Hindu and Buddhist study of the University of Universe pinpoint Mansarovar as the source of four great Indian rivers: the Indus, the Ganges, the Sutlej, and the Brahmaputra. So the study of the universe, when you study the ancient Hindu and the Buddhist study of the universe, they actually tells about the origin of this four particular river: Indus, Ganges, Sutlej, and Brahmaputra, from this particular place, Mansarovar. Actually, only the Sutlej flows from this lake, but the headwaters of the other all rise nearby on the side of Mount Kailash. So the reality of the fact is that only the river Sutlej flows from this particular river Mansarovar, but the real source or the headwater of the other three rivers, like the Indus, Ganges, and the Brahmaputra originate from the site of the Mount Kailash. They had a tea in horse only cave, which, like all the other buildings in the town, was built from the badly painted concrete and had three broken windows, but they had a good view of the lake through one of the windows. Now they went to the cafe situated in Hor, and they had the tea there. And when they were taking the tea, they looked through the window, and through the window they could have the panoramic view of Lake Mansarovar. After half an hour stop, they drove westward out of the town towards Mount Kailash. So after half an hour journey, they drove westward out of the town towards Mount Kailash. The knight was surprised to see Hor because it was absolutely different from what he had read about it. Ikai Kawagoshi, a Japanese monk who had been there in 1900, was so stirred by the holiness of the lake that he burst into tears. A few years later, the place had a similar effect on Seven Harin, a straight visitor. Now, what we see and what we read may be little different. So, the writer, in the description of the Ikai Kawagoshi, who was a Japanese monk, so he read about that particular description of the Japanese monk or the religious person or the priest who had been there in the year 1900, and after reaching there, just after seeing the sanctity or the purity or the holiness of the water, lake water, he was so impressed that he burst into tears. That it was so holy. But after that, what happened? The people did not bother about the cleanliness, and then they throw dirt, plastic bags, polythene bags and other anywhere they like, and in this way made the place very naughty. They reached a guest house in Darshan after 10:30 p.m. They were 4760 meter above the sea level. It was a disturbed night. The narrator had terrible cold because of the open air rubbish dump into Hur. With his nostril blocked, he found it difficult to breathe. He was tired and hungry and thus started breathing through his mouth. Now see, so the time was very difficult for the writer, the narrator. So when he was in Hur, he had the horrible experience. When in Hur, he had the horrible experience, and because of the dirt, he had terrible cold. He suffered from the terrible cold, and because of the cold, his nostril was blocked. Nostrils were blocked, and he found it very difficult to breathe. And the only way he breathed is through the mouth. So in this way, when they went to the hotel in Darchen, they had a terrible night because the narrator could not sleep beautifully. Let us see the next paragraph. Now see, when they were suffering from the cold, then they went to the hospital in Darchen, and what they found, let us see. But barely had he slept, when he woke up abruptly, he felt a peculiar heaviness in his chest. He sat up and cleared his nasal passages. He felt relief, but the moment he lay down, he intuitively felt that something was wrong. He was not breathless, but simply could not sleep. The fear of dying in his sleep kept him out. So his journey continued to journey up. Here what we find, so he found the difficulty. So this difficulty is caused by what is the height, and because of that, so he could not sleep in the hotel in Darchen. So he could not sleep because he had the fear. So there was some sort of heaviness in his heart, and he was also very much afraid of dying in his sleep because he felt that something was wrong. His nasal passages were blocked, and he could not sleep at all, and therefore he kept awake. Now he will be going to the hospital. The next morning, Tsetan took him to the Darshan Medical College. It was a new building that looked like a monastery from the outside. It had a very solid door that opened into the large courtyard. Into the consulting room was a Tibetan doctor who did not have the equipment that of a doctor would have. Carrying the thick pullover and in a woolly hat, he listened to the narrator's symptom and said it was because of the altitude and the cold. So in this part, we see that the narrator in the company of Tsetan went to the medical college, but this medical college did not look like the medical college. It looked like some monastery where monk usually reside. Okay, some religious building, monastery. Okay, like the church or the temple. Or therefore, so there he found the Tibetan doctor who did not appear to be doctor. He was wearing the pullover and also the woolly hat. He listened to the symptoms that he was suffering from, and then he came to the conclusion that it is because of the altitude of the height, and it is because of the cold that he suffered, that his nasal cavities or the passages were blocked, and he suffered from sleeplessness. He assured the narrator that he would be fine and gave him a brown envelope stuffed with 15 screws of paper that contained brown powder that tasted like cinnamon. He was asked to take them with hot water. The narrator did not like the look of the content, but took them away. He slept very soundly. Therefore, the doctor gave the prescription, also the medicine. The medicine that was given did not look like the medicine. It looked like some Ayurvedic pills, and even though it look abnormal, yet he had to take it because he was suffering, and after taking the medicine he could have a good night's sleep. And after having the good night's sleep, the experience, the look of the particular place Darshan was not so horrible or miserable. Let us see now. When Tsetan was assured that the narrator was going to be well, he left him and returned to Lhasa. As a Buddhist, it did not really matter either the narrator died, but he thought it would be bad for business. After the narrator got his rest and a good night's sleep, Darshan did not look so awful. It was still dusty and had heaps of rebels and refuse, but the bright sun gave him a view of the Himalayas. He saw the snow-capped mountain, Gurla Mandata, with a small cloud hanging over its peak. So now he got the relief from the cold, and the next morning he felt some relief, and he was a devout Christian, and therefore he did not worry about his death. So he felt that even if he died, there is no problem about it, because he was a devout Christian. And after that, so there was the sunlight, and through the sunlight he could notice, or he could view the Gurla Mandata, a temple, a snow-capped temple with a small cloud hanging over it. Then let us see the next part. Let us go to it. The town had a few general stores selling Chinese cigarettes, soap and other basic provision, as well as the usual string of paper plates. In front of one, men collected to the afternoon for a game of pool on a strange table into the open air, while nearby women washed their long hair into the icy water of a narrow brook near the guest house. Darshan felt stress-free and slow, but for the narrator this was a major disadvantage. There were no pilgrims. He had been told that in the peak of the pilgrim season, the town was full of visitors. That was the reason for his being there in the beginning of the season, but it seemed that he was too early. So the narrator thought that in the peak of the season, the pilgrimage season, there will be rush of the people. Therefore, he went a little earlier, but it was too early, because of that there were hardly any visitor here in Mount Kailash. So he had given some description of the general store selling the Chinese cigarette, soaps and other basic provision, as well as the usual strings of the prayer flags. So the things that are needed for the prayer, and the daily used item like the cigarette, soaps and other basic provisions or the items. So these are the kind of the experience that he had. This experience was a little unusual, and the time was not also the usual time for the kora. So it was a little earlier. Therefore, he could not meet with any visitor. Let us continue now. Here we go. One afternoon he sat with a glass of tea in Darshan, only kept thinking about the paucity of the pilgrims, and the fact that he had made much progress with his self-help program on self-thinking, positive thinking. After some contemplation, he felt he could only wait. He did not like the idea of going alone on a pilgrimage. Now see, so we could notice here that the narrator was resting in Darchen. So he was waiting for some other fellow pilgrims to go, because it is very difficult. He needed some companion, and it was the early season. Therefore, he needed for some companion to accompany to the holy place. One afternoon he sat with a glass of tea in Darshan's only cave. So that afternoon he was taking the tea the cave in Darshan, thinking about the lack of the pilgrims and the fact that he had not made much progress with his self-help program of the positive thinking. So he now developed a positive thinking that so if you can hope, if you hope for the arrival of the travelers or the pilgrims, then sometime it may come out true. Therefore, these are the kind of the self-help program on positive thinking that he adopted or took up, and finally that was correct. The kora was seasonal because the part of the road were likely to be blocked by snow. He had no idea if the snow had cleared, but he saw the large pieces of dirty ice on the bank of the Darshan stream. From the time when Tsetan had left, he had not met anyone in Darshan who could answer even the basic question in English. Still, he met Norbu. So the Tsetan was his only companion. He left and he was very lonely. He could not converse or discuss with anybody because nobody could answer his question in English. But finally there was a Norbu came and Norbu could communicate with the narrator. Let us see the meeting between Norbu and Nick Middleton, the narrator. Let us see it now. The narrator was in a small dark cave with a long metal stove that ran down to the middle. The wall under the roof were covered with the multicolored sheet of the plastic that is made into the shopping bags in many countries. Plastic is one of the Chinese most successful export along the Silk Road today. He sat beside a window so that he could see the pages of his notebook. He also had a novel with him. Norbu saw that the book, came to him, sat opposite and asked the narrator if he was English. They started a conversation. The narrator could make out that he did not belong to that place as he was wearing a wind cheater and metal rimmed spectacles of the Western style. He told the narrator that he was a Tibetan. He worked in Beijing at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, in the Institute of Ethnic Literature. He too had come to do the kora. Therefore, both of them had the initial discussion and they discussed about their purpose, and in this way now they will be starting for the kora. Norbu had been writing academic papers about the Kailash kora and its importance in the various works of Buddhist literature for many years, but he had never actually done it himself personally. When the narrator told him what brought him to the Darchen, he was excited and wanted to work with him as a team. He soon realized that Norbu was ill-equipped as him for the pilgrimage. He kept telling the narrator how fat he was and how tough it was going to be for him to do work. He wasn't really a practicing Buddhist. It become known, but he had enthusiasm and he was a Tibetan. So in the initial talk was made between Norbu and the narrator. So Norbu told about his faith, about his difficulty, and about his profession. Although at first the narrator had a thought that he would make the trek in the company of the religious people, but then felt that Norbu would turn out to be the ideal companion. Norbu suggested that they hire some yak to carry the luggage, as he said it was not possible for him to prostrate himself all around the mountain, as that was not his style, and anyway his tummy was too big. So finally we see that Norbu proposed that a particular vehicle is to be arranged, and in this vehicle they will carry their luggage, because it is not possible for him to carry all the goods and prostrate before the idols, because his tummy or the stomach was too big, and the Lord or the bag was very heavy. Therefore, they wanted to hire some yaks. Yaks are very common there into the hill. Therefore, they hired some yak to carry the luggage and do the kora into the company of Norbu. So, my dear children, this is the end of the lesson. Now, we will be going to the summary of the lesson through the MCQ. Let us go to the summary. Here we go. Let us continue. Let us go for it. What is kora? Kora is a religious journey. Where was the protagonist heading towards in the beginning of the chapter? To Mount Kailash. Question number 3. What was the sky looking like due to the sun spreading onto the mountain tops? So the answer is B. Rose tinted blush. What did Lamo give to the protagonist as a farewell gift? So what was the given? So we have already learned it. Long sleeve sheepskin coat. Who were Drogbas? Drogbas were the hill tribe. Why did the driver took a shortcut to Chamtan? See the answer. He wanted to avoid the traffic. He had to pick up another passenger. He did not want to go to the town. No. Answer is he knew that the shortest route toward Mount Kailash. What is the meaning of Kayang? Kayang, what is the meaning? Flower petals, no. Sunrays, no. Hues of piles of dust. Where did the protagonist encountered the great heart of the wild ass? Where they found? Where did the plains become more stony than grassy? What did the protagonist notice in front of the nomad's tent? What does the notice? Is the Tibetan mastiffs or the dogs. Okay, this is the answer. What did the big Tibetan dogs do after they saw the approaching car? They ran behind as a bullet fired from the gun. Means with maximum speed, they rushed toward the car. So, my dear children, this is the end of the lesson. I suppose you understood the lesson, and this is the end of your course also. Therefore, we will continue with the revision of the chapters, and from time to time we will be discussing about the question and answer of the chapters. Therefore, you will do what? You will be writing the vocabulary or the word items, learn the word, go through the lesson, and in this way become very proficient and use the unfamiliar word learned from the chapter. Okay, then let us stop here. Thank you. Bye bye and have a very good day.